Marriage is often painted as a pinnacle of love, a fairy tale ending where two souls unite forever. But behind the Instagram-perfect wedding photos and heartfelt vows, a stark reality emerges. Women, more than men, are the ones carrying the weight of regret. Studies and countless personal stories reveal a troubling pattern. Women are more likely to feel trapped, exhausted, and disillusioned in marriage. Why? Because a dream they were sold often turns into a nightmare of unbalanced responsibilities, emotional labor, and unmet expectations. Anna had always dreamed of marriage. As a little girl, she imagined the white dress, the perfect husband, and the life they would build together. When she met Ryan, a charming and ambitious man, she felt like she had won the love lottery. They had a whirlwind romance, filled with grand gestures and whispered promises of forever. The wedding was everything she had hoped for. But as the honeymoon phase faded, reality set in. Slowly, Anna found herself drowning in responsibilities. Cooking, cleaning, managing finances, and even caring for Ryan's emotional needs. Meanwhile, Ryan's life barely changed. He continued his career ambitions, went out with friends, and relaxed at home, while Anna juggled a full-time job and an unpaid second shift as a wife. At first, she reassured herself, this is just a phase. Things will get better. But they didn't. Like Anna, millions of women enter marriage believing in equality, only to find themselves burdened with an invisible workload. Studies show that even in modern marriages, women do the majority of housework and childcare, regardless of whether they work full-time. Emotional labor, remembering birthdays, planning family events, and managing household harmony, also falls disproportionately on women. And then there's the loss of identity. Women are expected to be wives and mothers first, individuals second. While men often continue living as they did before marriage, women are subtly or not so subtly pushed into roles they never signed up for. Years pass, and the resentment builds. Anna starts feeling more like a caregiver than a partner, more like an employee than a wife. She watches as her single friends chase dreams, travel, and live freely, while she carries the weight of a life that no longer feels like her own. One night, after another argument about Ryan's lack of involvement, Anna realizes something painful. She regrets getting married. Not because she doesn't love Ryan, but because the version of marriage she lives in is nothing like the partnership she imagined. The harsh reality is that marriage, as it stands today, often benefits men more than women. While men statistically live longer, are happier, and have fewer responsibilities in marriage, women report higher levels of stress, dissatisfaction, and burnout. Divorce rates, led primarily by women, speak volumes. Most women would rather take their chances alone than stay in a marriage that drains them. So, is the problem marriage itself or the way society has structured it? And more importantly, can it change? Anna doesn't have all the answers. But one thing is certain. She wishes she had asked the hard questions before saying I do. Anna sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the floor. The house was quiet except for the distant hum of the dishwasher, another task she had taken care of after Ryan had gone to bed. She used to love the stillness of the night, but now it felt suffocating. A thought crept into her mind, one she had been avoiding for months. If I could go back in time, would I still marry Ryan? The answer came almost immediately. No. Her heart pounded at the realization. Did this mean she didn't love him? No, she did. But love, she had learned, wasn't enough when respect, balance, and personal happiness were missing. The next morning, Anna tried to ignore the tightness in her chest as she went through her routine, packing Ryan's lunch, responding to work emails, planning dinner. She watched as Ryan left for work with nothing but a kiss on the cheek and a casual, see you later. He had no idea that she had barely slept, no idea that she was questioning everything. She thought back to the early days of their marriage. At first, she hadn't noticed a shift. She had willingly taken on tasks, believing that's what a good wife did. But over time, she became the default manager of their lives, handling bills, scheduling doctor's appointments, remembering anniversaries, and family obligations. She had tried to talk to Ryan about it before. I feel like I do everything, she had admitted one night. Ryan had frowned. That's not true. I work long hours, too. That was the problem. He saw his job as his only responsibility, while hers included both her career and everything else. And when she pushed for more help, the response was always the same. He would help if she asked, if she reminded him, if she explained exactly what needed to be done. But wasn't that the problem? She didn't want to be his supervisor. She wanted a partner. Anna held on to hope that things would change. Maybe Ryan just didn't realize how much she was struggling. Maybe if she explained it better, he would step up. That moment came during an argument over something small. Laundry. "I don't understand why you're so upset," Ryan said, arms crossed. "If you needed help, why didn't you just ask?" Anna felt something inside her snap. "Because I shouldn't have to ask, Ryan. I'm not your mother." The words hung between them, heavy and undeniable. For the first time, she saw the flash of realization in his eyes. But it was too late. The damage had been done. That night, Anna lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She thought about her life, her dreams, the woman she used to be before marriage. She had always imagined a future filled with adventure, laughter, and equal partnership. Instead, she felt like she was slowly disappearing. The next morning, she made a decision, one that terrified and liberated her at the same time. She was done waiting for things to get better. She was done settling for a marriage that made her feel small. As she packed a small bag, ready to spend some time away to clear her head, she felt something she hadn't felt in years, relief. Maybe she would return. Maybe she wouldn't. But for the first time in a long time, Anna was choosing herself. Anna hesitated at the door, her fingers gripping the handle of her overnight bag. She had spent years prioritizing Ryan, their marriage, and the life they had built together. But now, standing there, she realized she had spent so little time prioritizing herself. She turned to look at Ryan, who stood in the middle of the living room, arms crossed, confusion and frustration written all over his face. "So you're just leaving?" he asked, his voice tight. Anna took a deep breath. "I'm not just leaving, Ryan. I'm choosing to step away and figure out what I need." He scoffed. "This is ridiculous. People don't just walk out of marriages over housework." Anna flinched. He still didn't get it. "This isn't just about chores, Ryan. It's about feeling unseen, unheard, and exhausted. I've been drowning in this marriage, and you haven't even noticed." Ryan opened his mouth, then closed it. For the first time, he looked genuinely unsettled. "Will you come back?" he asked finally. Anna didn't have an answer. "I don't know." And with that, she walked out the door. Anna booked a small Airbnb in a quiet town a few hours away. It wasn't a grand escape, but it was hers. The first night alone, she expected to feel guilty, anxious, maybe even regretful. But instead, she felt something she hadn't in years. For the first time in forever, no one was asking her what was for dinner. No one was expecting her to remember a work deadline, pay a bill, or manage a household. She spent the first few days sleeping in, walking aimlessly through town, reading books she had abandoned years ago. And then she started thinking, who was I before marriage? She pulled out an old journal from college, flipping through pages filled with dreams and ambitions. She had once wanted to travel, start creative business, maybe even move to a new city. She had let so many of those dreams die in the name of marriage, in the name of being a good wife. But was a marriage that required her to shrink herself really worth saving? Back home, Ryan sat in the silence of their apartment. The bed felt too big without Anna. The house felt strangely empty. For the first time, he did the things Anna had always done. Cooked his own meals, did the laundry, managed the bills. It wasn't that these tasks were impossible, but he realized how much he had taken for granted. More than that, he realized how lonely he felt. He scrolled through his phone, reading articles about marriage and emotional labor. One line hit him harder than the rest. A wife shouldn't have to ask for equality. Ryan had always assumed Anna would always be there. That marriage was about love, and love meant enduring. But now, as he sat alone in their quiet apartment, he realized that love wasn't enough. Partnership was. And he had failed at that. A week later, Anna sat in a small cafe, stirring her coffee, when her phone buzzed. "Ryan, I understand now. And I want to change. But I won't ask you to come back if that's not what you want." Anna's breath caught. She hadn't expected that. For the first time, Ryan wasn't demanding, wasn't dismissing her feelings. He was giving her a choice. She stared at the message, her heart torn between the past and the future. Did she believe he could change? Did she even want to go back? Anna had always thought regret was the worst thing a person could feel. But now, she realized the only thing worse than regret was staying in a life that no longer fit. She took a deep breath and started typing. Because whatever choice she made next, whether to rebuild her marriage or walk away for good, this time, it would be on her terms. Anna stared at her phone, rereading Ryan's message. I understand now, and I want to change. But I won't ask you to come back if that's not what you want. For years, she had wished for these words. She had begged for acknowledgement, for change. Now that Ryan finally seemed to understand, why did she feel so uncertain? She sipped her coffee, gazing out the cafe window. She had spent the last week rediscovering herself, sleeping in without guilt, reading for hours, walking alone without an agenda. It had been the most freeing time of her life. The thought of returning to her marriage, even with Ryan's promise to change, felt heavy. But did leaving mean giving up too soon? She closed her eyes and whispered the only question that mattered. Do I still want this marriage? And for the first time, the answer was clear. That evening, Anna texted Ryan, let's meet tomorrow at the park. The next day, she arrived early, choosing a quiet bench overlooking the lake. When Ryan showed up, he looked different, not just tired, but humbled. There was no anger in his eyes, no defensiveness, just uncertainty, maybe even fear. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Ryan spoke. I've been reading a lot, he admitted, about marriage, about emotional labor, about how I made you feel invisible. Anna nodded but said nothing. She wanted to hear everything. I always thought I was a good husband, he continued. I never cheated. I worked hard. I thought that was enough. But I see now that love isn't just about not doing the wrong things. It's about actively doing the right ones. And I failed you in that. Anna swallowed hard. She hadn't expected him to get it so clearly. I don't want you to come back just because I want you to, Ryan said. I want you to come back if you believe we can build something better. But if you don't, I'll respect that. Tears stung her eyes, because this was what she had needed all along. Not just an apology, but accountability. Not just words, but the willingness to let her choose. And now, the choice was hers. Anna took a deep breath. I love you, Ryan. But love isn't enough if I have to lose myself in the process. Ryan's face fell. She continued. I believe you want to change, and I appreciate that. But right now, I don't want to come back. I need more time, more space, to be sure that if I choose this marriage again, it's because I want it, not because I'm afraid of leaving. Ryan exhaled, nodding slowly. I understand. For the first time in their marriage, she felt truly heard. They sat there for a while, watching the water ripple under the afternoon sun. There was sadness between them, but also something new, respect. Anna didn't know what the future held. Maybe they would find their way back to each other. Maybe they wouldn't. But for the first time in a long time, she felt in control of her own life. And that, she realized, was a kind of love she had been searching for all along, the love she finally had for herself. Days turned into weeks, and Anna found herself settling into a life that felt unfamiliar but strangely comforting. She extended her stay at the Airbnb, renting it for another month. The solitude didn't feel lonely. It felt like a long overdue reunion with herself. She woke up without an alarm, ate when she was hungry, and filled her time with things she once loved. Painting, long walks, writing in her journal. Each day, she felt more like the woman she had lost in her marriage. Ryan texted occasionally, but he respected her space. Some messages were simple. Hope you're doing okay. Others held more depth. I started cooking my own meals. I had no idea how much effort went into it. She appreciated the effort, but she also knew effort wasn't enough. True change had to be sustained, not just triggered by the fear of losing someone. One evening, as she sat on the balcony watching the sunset, her phone buzzed again. Ryan, I had my first session with a therapist today. It made me realize a lot about how I was raised, how I saw marriage. I just wanted you to know, I'm not doing this just for you. I need to be better for myself, too. Anna stared at the message, her heart tightening. This was different. 2 months passed. Anna had grown in ways she never imagined. She had started freelancing, exploring passions she had long abandoned. She had also spent time alone, not just physically, but emotionally, sitting with the hard truths of her past and her marriage. Ryan had continued therapy. He never pressured her to return, never made grand promises. Instead, he showed quiet, consistent growth. One evening, he called her. "I know you're still figuring things out," he said, "but I want to ask you something, no pressure." Anna hesitated. "Okay, I'd like to meet you for dinner. No expectations. Just two people seeing where they are now." For the first time in a long time, she smiled at the thought. They met at a quiet restaurant downtown. Anna had expected nerves, but when she saw Ryan, she noticed something different. He looked lighter, more grounded. Over dinner, they talked, not about their problems, but about their growth. Ryan shared how therapy had helped him understand his blind spots, how he had learned to take responsibility instead of waiting to be told. Anna shared how she had learned to stop defining herself by what others needed from her. At the end of the night, Ryan looked at her with a softness she hadn't seen in years. "I don't want you to come back out of obligation, Anna," he said. "I want you to come back only if you truly want to." And for the first time, she wasn't scared to answer. "I think I'd like to take things slow," she said, smiling. "Not as a wife right away, but as two people figuring out if we still fit." Ryan nodded. That's all I could ever ask for. Their journey wasn't about returning to what was, but about creating something new. Maybe they would rebuild their marriage in a way that was healthier, more balanced. Or maybe in time, they would realize they were better apart. But for now, there was no regret. Only two people growing, healing, and choosing their next steps with open hearts. And that, Anna realized, was a kind of love worth having. The kind that didn't demand sacrifice, but nurtured growth. Whether with Ryan or without him, she finally knew she was enough on her own. Months passed, and Anna and Ryan navigated their new dynamic carefully. They met for coffee, took evening walks, and slowly relearned each other. There was no pressure, no rush, just two people seeing if their love could evolve into something better. Ryan continued therapy, not just as a temporary fix, but as a genuine effort to unlearn the patterns that had driven Anna away. He no longer waited for her to ask for help. He simply stepped up. More importantly, he had started asking himself who he wanted to be, independent of their marriage. Anna, too, had grown. She had started her own small business, something she had always dreamed of but never had the space to pursue. She had built a life that was hers, not defined by being someone's wife. Then one evening, as they walked to the park where they had met months ago to discuss their future, Ryan stopped and turned to her. "Anna," he said softly, "I love you, and I always will. But I need to ask, are we truly right for each other? Or are we holding on because it's what we've always known?" Anna felt the weight of his words settle deep in her chest. She had spent so long fearing regret, fearing the loss of what they had built. But standing there, looking into the eyes of a man who had changed, she realized something profound. She loved him, but love alone wasn't enough. She smiled gently, her heart full of gratitude rather than sorrow. "We've come so far, Ryan, and I'm proud of both of us. But I think we've outgrown what we used to be." Ryan swallowed hard, then nodded. "I was afraid of that, but I think I knew it too." They sat together on a nearby bench, neither speaking for a long time. There were no accusations, no resentment, just an understanding that sometimes love transforms in ways we don't expect. When the night grew colder, Ryan exhaled and smiled. "So, what now?" Anna looked up at the sky, feeling lighter than she ever had. "Now, we move forward, separately, but with no regrets." And for the first time, they both knew it was the right choice. As Anna walked away, she didn't feel sadness. She felt peace. She had loved deeply. She had fought for herself, and now she was choosing a future that belonged solely to her. And that, she realized, was the greatest love story of all, the one where she finally chose herself.